Well, you're still watching Morning Live. Thanks for being with us. The current communications tender debacle at the National Health Department has raised questions in some quarters around the ANC's application of its own step-aside resolution. And this after Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize yesterday said that there was no need for him to step aside as he was not involved in the awarding of the tender, nor did he benefit from it. He did, however, admit that the beneficiaries of the contract were his comrades and that the awarding of the 150 million rand tender was indeed irregular. Now, the absence of a comment from the ANC on the matter has also raised criticism from some quarters, as other leaders who have been found to have failed in performing oversight duties, as an example, over their respective portfolios, have been called to account by the party. But it would seem that the party's resolution is not that straightforward, with some legal fundis questioning its constitutionality. And one such person is legal commentator, advocate Mudidima Manya, and he argues that the resolution could have some broader implications, as courts have already determined that anything political parties do which is contrary to the Constitution actually stands to be declared invalid. So Advocate Manya joins us now to discuss this a little further. Advocate, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers.
So in your article, you say, for example, that the suspended Secretary General Ace Magashule believes that a section of the resolution of the ANC Constitution that was taken at the party's 54th elective conference in 2017 and the decision of the National Executive Committee may be unlawful, also arguing that the NEC's decision on the step-aside rule has actually narrowed down the initial resolution. So in your view, this argument, the step-aside rule not being in line with the ANC's own constitution, what is your view on that?
Well, I don't actually think that is the case. I think that type of argument is misplaced. The resolution was passed by a properly constituted conference of the ANC, and we all know the processes which lead up to the ANC conference. The decision of the NEC, in my understanding, was an attempt to better define, for common understanding, the correct interpretation of the resolution. The difficulty that I foresee here is a situation where leaders of political parties, just not the ANC, participate in taking decisions, and when those decisions tend to bite them, they start to question the legitimacy and validity of those resolutions. My article basically is to express my concern regarding what political parties seem to think is the exclusive terrain when it comes to public affairs matters. Yes, the ANC is a separate team from government, but the ANC runs government. So is the DA in the Western Cape. So what happens within the DA and the ANC are matters of public interest. My concern is that if the court were to set aside the disciplinary provisions of the ANC constitution, it would constitute a license to say political party members and leaders can misbehave and nothing can be done about it. And I think that is, for me, the greatest concern.
So let's just unpack it further. So now there are different categories that pertain to this particular resolution. So on the one hand, there are people who've been implicated in corruption, such as the Deputy Minister of State Security Agency, former ANC spokesperson Zizi Kotwa, for example, who has been mentioned at the Zondo Commission by companies alleging that he personally benefited from kickbacks. Then there's another group of people also being investigated by the SIU. And then you have those charged by the courts, like Bongani Bongo, who is in government. So what should be the standard that is applied, for example, in your view, by the ANC and by President Ramaphosa?
Look, the resolution, the step-aside resolution, is a resolution that is premised on moral and ethical courage. it is not meant to serve a disciplinary punitive purpose. The aim of the resolution, as stated in the resolution, is to ensure that the public sees forthright and morally courageous leaders whilst they are undergoing the formal, whether disciplinary or legal processes. My understanding is that those who meet the criteria set out in the resolution stand to step aside. There's no pronunciation of their guilt or otherwise. It's a moral and ethical issue. I think the difficulty in this country is that we want everything purely and literally legal as opposed to morals. I mean, one of the questions that the two examples that we have given, and the public out there ask themselves, do we trust this minister? Do we trust this deputy minister? How do we relate to them in the context of what has come out? One of the challenges, though, we face is that the collapse of our law enforcement and justice system has resulted in significant delays in processing matters. I mean, people who could have been arrested 3 years ago are still being investigated now. But the purpose of the resolution is to set up a moral and ethical standard.
Now, Advocate Manya, from an ethical perspective, so just parking the governance perspective for a moment, if we just look at this ethically, does a person step aside because it is the ethical thing to do because they are implicated in allegations of corruption, malfeasance, or whatever it may be? Or should they do so simply based on the cooperation or lack thereof with investigations, as Minister Mkhize alluded to yesterday? You would know, for example, that Ace Magashule, for example, believes that the categories we spoke about of how people are implicated, he believes that everybody should step aside. So what's your view on that?
Well, firstly, we must understand that ethics is about me. I police myself. That's what moral uprightness is all about. You don't have to wait for somebody to come and say to you that you have done wrong. So there must be, firstly, a consciousness in the leaders and the members and an appreciation of what is morally and ethically wrong and what is legally wrong. Secondly, the resolution itself has made provision for a process. For instance, people go to the Integrity Commission of the ANC, or they are given an opportunity. And I think we have seen with the suspended Secretary General of the ANC that he had about 30 days that he wanted to consult, and I think he had an opportunity to make representations. So I don't understand it to mean it's a rigid system where you accuse me of something that I must step aside. I think that it is also premised on the fact that there must be at least a prima facie case of misconduct that falls within the category of the resolution.
So clearly, we don't have a great track record of leaders acting ethically. So therefore, should there be more consideration, ethical consideration on the part of the president, for example?
Yes, but remember the problem that we are confronted with is, firstly, as you correctly point out, we don't have a track record of people appreciating morally and ethically wrong conduct and taking corrective action on their own, or organizations doing so. Secondly, we have a problem because everybody is accusing another of the same thing. So in real terms, we may find ourselves in a situation where everybody must step aside. I'm asking myself, with the amount of information that has come out of the State Capital Commission, how many people could really be qualified to remain in public office. But I think the other complexity is that even those that do not occupy government offices influence government decisions. And the question is, should they remain in those positions? But because almost everybody is accusing the other, and I mean, current President Ramaphosa is facing accusations himself. And I think that is what seem to have informed the suspended Secretary General to try and suspend him. So we sort of sitting in a situation where almost our entire leadership is one way or the other implicated in one thing or the other. The question is, does the ANC firstly have an efficient and effective mechanism to deal with these things? Secondly, is the government in a position to efficiently and effectively deal with these issues. I'm just imagining that if President Ramaphosa were to act on the deputy minister, naturally, he would need some information that says at least there's a basis. But bear in mind that in the final analysis, the step aside is not whether you are guilty or not. It's simply that your moral and ethical standing in society is being challenged.
So yesterday, for example, after the press briefing by Minister Mkhize, many people felt that he was now being he placed himself in a position where he is now, in a sense, investigating himself. I want to, hear your view on that. But also, if we look at, as an example, if we draw a parallel between what happened with Gauteng Health MEC, Dr. Bandile Masuku, and that case saw him suspended by Premier Makura. And then you also have this one of the National Health Minister. What is the difference fundamentally between the two, as you see it?
Well, it doesn't seem like there is a difference. And therefore, you would also expect some measure of consistency in terms of how it happens. But I think the bottom line is whether, as I said, the efficiency. If I take you back during the presidency of Nelson Mandela, there were allegations made by military intelligence that there was a plan to overthrow the government. And President Mandela then appointed then Deputy Chief Justice Mohammed to conduct an investigation. In a matter of a week, President Mandela had taken a decision, and the then chief of the defense force was sacked, basically. And I think that is the type of efficiency that you need in the context of what we are dealing with. Yes, Minister Mkhize is going to face a tall order in the sense that one of those accusations will be that you are investigating yourself, you are projecting yourself as a victim, and all these kind of things. He may be innocent, by the way, but I think he also knows better whether he was in any way involved or not involved, and he may have to take the president into his confidence regarding the matter, and that is what ethics is all about.
So we have to round up, unfortunately, but let me just ask you this, Advocate Manya. You are of the view that President Cyril Ramaphosa should actually dissolve cabinet. And listening to you say, if we listen to what's coming out of the Zondo Commission, the evidence being led there, for example, it would seem everybody, just about everybody, is implicated in one way or another, if you look at the top leadership of the country. So speak to us about that. You say the president should dissolve cabinet. Is it for this reason?
Well, I haven't said the president must dissolve cabinet, but I think one of the options that he has is to really restart his cabinet from scratch, because part of the difficulty that we have, and I think that is why the discipline within political parties is critical, because for him to take any decision with regard to the position of the cabinet, he needs to speak to the ANC. If leaders in the ANC are implicated, and if we accept that to some extent the positions in the ANC create patronage within government, then he has got a difficulty. But I think that Mr. Holomisa has raised an issue which maybe this nation must look at. He said that we may have to come together and talk about how we move forward. I mean, the situation is serious. If every day we will have a minister or a deputy minister or a senior government person implicated, is a problem. I mean, we have the public protector, we have public service commission, we have the integrity commission in the ANC, but it doesn't seem that we are having the desired impact, which may suggest that the problem is more deeper. But I think President Ramaphosa, at the end of the day, he's the head of state, and he's got to take some drastic decision and rescue this nation, because from what it seems, we may lose him as well in the course of this fracas.
Well, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your thoughts and your input. Legal commentator, Advocate Modidima Manya, talking to us about the ANC's application of its step-aside resolution and the broader societal and legal implications of all of these implications that are being made, be it at the Zondo Commission or as we see implications of the media investigations into alleged corruption. So we asked you, of course, as well in our